don't go back. Thomas is a busy engine. He is very good at shunting. Thomas thinks he can shunt backwards and forwards faster than any other engine. One day, Thomas and Diesel were waiting at the quarry. The quarry manager arrived. Thomas, I have a very important job for you. You must fill lots of trucks with stone. Henry will arrive soon to collect them. Yes, sir. I have an important job too. I'm sure I'll fill my trucks first. No, you won't. I can beat a steamy any day. I'll race you to the hopper. Thomas was sure he could win the race and do his job. But Diesel wanted the race to be tricky. He had a devious idea. We have to go backwards. All right, I'll win. So the two engines raced away, backwards. Steamies are fast and steamies are first, Thomas huffed to himself. Thomas was determined to win. Thomas and Diesel took separate tracks to the hopper. I'm sure to win now, Thomas thought to himself. Thomas steamed towards the hopper. I'm first, but Thomas couldn't see that Diesel had arrived first behind him. Thomas bashed into Diesel. Stone poured down from the hopper. Thomas was covered from funnel to footplate in dust. Ha ha, silly slow steamy, I won the race. Thomas wanted to beat Diesel. We'll have another race to the washdown, and this time I'll win. Well, we still have to race backwards. So together the two engines whooshed away. Thomas and Diesel raced buffer to buffer. Steamies are fast and steamies are first, huffed Thomas to himself. Mavis was at the washdown. She was enjoying a soapy soak, but Thomas couldn't see Mavis. He raced backwards into the washdown and biffed into Mavis, who came off the rails. Ooh! Rattling rods! Ooh! Then Diesel rolled in. I won. Thomas forgot about Mavis. Thomas was enjoying being the winner. Yeah, well, we both won a race. We must have one more. Thomas was no longer thinking about his job. All right, let's race to the engine sheds. Whoever wins this race is the fastest. Diesel revved his engine. Thomas pumped his pistons, and the two engines raced quickly away, backwards. Thomas steamed into the lead. Steamies are fast and steamies are first, he huffed to himself. Thomas had to win this race, but Diesel rattled alongside him. Then there was trouble. Harry and Bert were enjoying a rest at the engine sheds, but Thomas and Diesel couldn't see them. They raced backwards towards Harry and Bert. With a crash and a bash, Thomas and Diesel smashed Harry and Bert right through the back of the engine sheds. Stones and timber flew everywhere. Bust my buffers! Oh no! Then Henry arrived. I've come to collect my train. Your train isn't ready. Then the yard manager arrived. Thomas, you have pushed Mavis off the rails, and Harry and Bert right through the back of the engine sheds. Thomas felt worse than ever. Oh no, it's all my fault. I should have done my job and not raced against Diesel. Come on, let's have one more race. No, Diesel, I have an important job to do. Thomas puffed over to Henry. I'll fill your trucks as fast as I can. Your train will soon be ready. And Thomas chuffed quickly away. Thomas felt terrible. I must work very hard to put everything right, he thought to himself. Thomas shunted the trucks under the hopper. Soon they were all filled. And Henry huffed happily away with his train. Then Thomas collected Rocky. Rocky lowered Mavis back onto the tracks. I'm sorry I bashed you. I was trying to win a race. Mavis was relieved to be back on track. Next, Thomas shunted Rocky over to the sheds. Harry and Bert were soon back on the rails. I'm sorry I biffed you. I should have done my job instead of trying to be the fastest. Then Diesel rolled in. We must clear all the trucks of broken stones. Yes, Thomas. At last, all the trucks were loaded with broken rubble from the sheds. So together, Thomas and Diesel shunted the trucks as quickly as they could. At last, all the jobs were done. We still don't know who's the fastest. Let's have another race. All right, but this time we must go forward. So the two engines raced away to the quarry gates. And they both arrived together. The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor. Rosie's Funfair Special. Rosie is a lively little tank engine. She is very quick. She also likes to be very busy. Any job is a good job for Rosie. One day, Rosie and Emily were at Knapford Station. The fat controller had some important news. The Funfair train is waiting at Brendam Docks. Rosie was excited. She hoped the fat controller would ask her to pull the Funfair train. Emily, you must pull the Funfair Special. Rosie was disappointed. Rosie, you must be Emily's back engine. Rosie didn't want to be the back engine. She wanted to pull the Funfair Special on her own. I have a lot to do today. After we pull the Funfair Special, I have to collect milk from High Farm. Rosie puffed sadly along. She wished she could pull the special on her own. Then Rosie had an idea. If she arrived at the docks before Emily, she could take the Funfair Special. Then Emily could puff straight to Hill Farm. That would really help Emily. So Rosie raced off as fast as her pistons would pump. Rosie puffed alongside the Funfair Special. This is a very long train. Rosie couldn't see that Emily was already coupled up and waiting for Rosie. Rosie quickly coupled up to the Funfair Special. Emily will be pleased, she thought. Still, Rosie didn't know that Emily was on the other end of the train. Then there was trouble. Rosie huffed and puffed. She heaved and hauled. The couplings groaned and strained until one of them snapped. Hooray! I'm pulling the Funfair Special! But Rosie had left half of it behind with Emily. Rosie puffed proudly along. The children were very excited to see Rosie pulling a funfair special. That made Rosie happy. Then there was trouble. Another coupling snapped. Up ahead, Bertie was carrying children to the funfair. Rosie chuffed by. Bertie started to toot his horn. He's tooting at my funfair special, thought Rosie. But Bertie was tooting because the coconut truck was rolling toward the level crossing. It smashed against the gate. Coconuts rolled everywhere. The level crossing was blocked, but Rosie didn't know. She puffed happily on. Then another coupling snapped. Rosie passed Stepney in a siding. Stepney was waiting to puff onto the main line. The points changed. Stepney blew his whistle loudly. He's whistling at my funfair special, thought Rosie proudly. But Stepney was whistling because the truck of sugar was now rolling towards him. Stepney was covered in pink sugar from funnel to footplate. But Rosie didn't know. She puffed proudly on. Rosie steamed up Gordon's Hill. Another coupling snapped. She heard an engine's whistle. They're whistling at my funfair special too, Rosie thought happily. But it was Emily with the rest of the funfair trucks. Rosie's flatbed was now rolling back towards Emily. It bashed into Emily. Seats from the big wheel clattered and clanged all over the tracks. Emily was stuck. Rosie chuffed cheerfully into Maithwaite Station. Nobody waved or whistled. The fat controller was cross. I told you to be Emily's back engine. But I brought the funfair special all on my own, sir. I wanted to help Emily. You haven't helped anyone. You have caused confusion and delay. You've left half the train. Now there will be no funfair for the children. Rosie felt terrible. She had wanted everyone to be proud of her, and now they were cross. Please, sir, I know just what to do. I'm a very quick engine. I can collect all the trucks. Then I'll be Emily's back engine, and we will deliver the funfair special in time. So Rosie whooshed off as fast as her wheels would wear. First, Rosie collected Rocky. Then she pulled them as quickly as she could to Emily. Emily's tracks were still blocked. I'm so sorry, Emily. I only wanted to help you. Rocky will clear the line. I will collect the other trucks. Then we can deliver the funfair special together. Thank you, Rosie. Rosie left Rocky and she raced away to collect the first truck. She picked up the coconut truck. Then Rosie collected a new truck of sugar and she raced back to Emily. Rosie had been very quick. Rocky had just loaded the seats back onto the flatbed. I'm ready to be your back engine now. And together they set off up Gordon's Hill. Rosie and Emily arrived at Maithwaite. All the children waved at the two engines. We have delivered the funfair special in time. That evening, Rosie and Emily watched the children at the funfair. The children were having a wonderful time. I hope we can work together on another special. The sooner the better. Working with you is best of all. Rosie couldn't have felt happier. Percy and the Bandstand. It was summertime on the Island of Sodor. The Fat Controller was in Great Waterton with Miss Jenny, Jack and Alfie. They were building a new bandstand. There was to be an open-air concert that evening. It was a special surprise for Lady Hatt. She loved brass band. All the engines were busy helping to make the day special. Edward was bringing special parcels. Thomas was bringing the banners and bunting. And Percy was bringing gravel for the pathways. Thank you, Percy. Right on time. Percy tried to shunt the trucks into place, but the trucks decided to be troublesome.
Hold back! Hold back!
Percy pushed and pushed, but the trucks wouldn't move. Percy knew what he had to do. He had to use his do-as-I-say whistle. So Percy blew his whistle long and loudly. The trucks knew that when Percy blew his do-as-I-say whistle, they had to do what he wanted. It meant Percy was in charge. Soon, all the trucks were in line. The Fat Controller bustled over to Percy. I hope I didn't blow my whistle too loudly. Not at all, Percy. You showed you were in charge. Percy was relieved. Now, I need you to collect Lady Hatt and bring her to the surprise concert. You must be here by tea time, understand? Yes, sir. You mustn't tell her where she's going, or it will spoil the surprise. Don't worry, sir, I won't. Percy had collected the carriage. He had to meet Lady Hatt at Maithwaite Station. It was a long way from Great Waterton. At last, Percy puffed into Maithwaite Station. All aboard! Sir Topham Hatt has sent me to take you on a special trip. Oh, that sounds lovely. First of all, I'd like to go to the duck pond. And Lady Hatt climbed on board. Percy was worried. He was supposed to take Lady Hatt to the bandstand. That was her special trip. Percy knew there wasn't time to go to the duck pond, but he didn't dare tell Lady Hatt. He thought she might be cross. So he puffed to the duck pond. Lady Hatt stood by the duck pond. She liked watching the ducks. They quacked and quacked. But Percy wanted them to be on their way. At last, Lady Hatt was back on board. Next, I'd like to go to the windmill. Percy was very worried. He knew there wasn't time to go to the windmill, but he didn't feel brave enough to tell Lady Hatt. So Percy puffed away. When they arrived at the windmill, Dusty Miller was there. Lady Hatt was pleased. Hello, Dusty. How are you? We're going to be really late now, Percy huffed to himself. At last, Lady Hatt finished talking to Dusty. Now, Percy, I'd like to see the bluebells in the woods. It would be the perfect end to my special trip. Percy was more worried than ever. Percy puffed to the woods, but with every puff he was getting later and later, and further from Lady Hatt's surprise. Percy and Lady Hatt arrived at the wood. Lady Hatt wandered off to admire the bluebells. Percy waited and waited. Suddenly, Thomas puffed up to Percy. Where have you been, Percy? The Fat Controller is cross. He doesn't want Lady Hatt to be late. Percy didn't want the Fat Controller to be cross. He didn't want the surprise to be spoiled. Don't worry, I'll have her there on time. So Thomas puffed away. Percy couldn't see Lady Hatt anywhere. Percy knew what he had to do. He had to use his do-as-I-say whistle. Percy blew his whistle long and loudly. Lady Hatt came out of the woods. Percy, what do you want? I'm taking you to a surprise. That's your special trip. Oh, I love surprises. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought you'd be cross with me if I told you what to do. And now we might be late. We must hurry. So Lady Hatt climbed quickly on board and Percy raced away. Percy steamed back to Great Waterton as fast as he could. The band was warming up. Jack and Alfie were very excited. Percy had arrived with Lady Hatt on time. The band started to play. Lady Hatt was delighted. Oh, what a lovely surprise. Thank you for bringing me here on time, Percy. And thank you, Percy, for keeping it a surprise. Percy was pleased. His do-as-I-say whistle had saved the day. It had been really useful, and so Duncan and the hot air balloon. It was a beautiful day in the hills of Sodor. It was also the Thin Controller's twins' birthday. Every year, Duncan gave the twins a special birthday ride. Duncan was excited. At the depot, Duncan was getting ready. He had to look his best. His special birthday flag had been fixed to his cab. Duncan was very proud of his flag. Mr. Percival came to see Duncan. Shall I pick up the twins now? No, Duncan. This year I'm giving them a ride in a hot air balloon for their birthday. Duncan was disappointed. He wanted to give the twins their birthday treat. Duncan, you must collect a hot air balloon from the transfer yards. Yes, sir. And he chuffed sadly away. Duncan pulled into the transfer yards. Thomas had brought the balloon from the docks. The balloon man was filling it with hot air. Hello, Duncan. Hello, Thomas. That's a wonderful balloon. You be sure to puff slowly and carefully. So Duncan huffed slowly away to Mr. Percival's house. On his way, Duncan rolled over a bumpy track. His flatbed clanked, rattled and jiggled. One of the ropes holding down the balloon came undone. Oh dear, thought Duncan. The bumpy track has jiggled the balloon loose. What shall I do? Then an idea flew into Duncan's funnel. If I jiggled the balloon more, it might float away. Then I could give the twins a ride today, and they could have a balloon ride tomorrow. So Duncan began to jiggle backwards and forwards over the bumpy track. The ropes loosened, and the balloon floated away. Hooray! And Duncan chuffed cheerily to the Thin Controller's house. Duncan puffed round a bend. Then he stopped. The hot air balloon had floated down. It was right in front of him on the track. Duncan bumped into the balloon. Flatten my funnel. Now what should I do? The basket wobbled. and one of the sandbags fell off. It made the balloon rise up a little. Duncan was puzzled. He biffed the balloon again. More sandbags fell off. The balloon rose higher and higher and floated away. Duncan was delighted. Duncan chuffed round another bend. Bus my buffer. There, on the bridge above him, was the balloon. I thought the balloon had floated away. What shall I do now? He thought. Duncan chuffed his biggest puff. The hot smoke from his funnel flew into the balloon. It made the balloon get bigger. This gave Duncan an idea. He huffed and puffed and puffed and huffed. The balloon got bigger and bigger and floated away. Duncan was delighted. He raced to the thin controller's house. The thin controller was waiting for him. Where's the hot air balloon, Duncan? It came loose, sir, and floated away. The thin controller was upset. Then there was trouble. The balloon floated down from the sky once again, straight towards the weather vane on the thin controller's roof. It burst on the sharp point. The balloon tumbled down. Fizzling fireboxes. Duncan was upset. Now the twins wouldn't have their balloon ride at all. It's all my fault, sir. I just wanted to give the twins their birthday treat, just as I always have. The thin controller was cross. Duncan, you were going to give the twins their birthday ride. You were going to pick them up and bring them here. Duncan felt even more upset. He wanted the twins to have a happy day. Sir, Peter Sam could pick up the twins. Then I will go and collect the balloon repairman. I'm sure he could fix the balloon. The thin controller thought this was a very good idea. So Duncan puffed quickly away. Duncan raced into Mountain Village Station. The balloon repairman was waiting. We must be quick, sir. The balloon has to be fixed before the twins get home. Duncan chuffed quickly back to the thin controller's house. The thin controller was very pleased to see them. The balloon repairman looked at the hole in the balloon. Oh dear, it's a very big hole. I don't have enough material to fix it. I know, sir. My birthday flag, it might just be big enough. The balloon repairman looked at Duncan's flag. Well, yes, Duncan. That would be perfect. The balloon repairman fixed the balloon just in time. Peter Sam arrived with the twins. They were delighted. Soon, Mr. Percival and the twins were floating high above the Island of Sodor. And Duncan felt so happy, he thought his boiler would burst. Blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor. The Man in the Hills. Thomas puffs proudly all over the Island of Sodor. He is especially happy to visit his friends on the narrow gauge railway. There is always something special to do or to see in the high hills. One day, Thomas puffed into the wharf. Lots of his friends were there. Hello! It was the Thin Controller's birthday. The little engines had a lot to do before they could go to his party. Thomas was excited. I've brought a present from the Fat Controller. It's a special tent to have the birthday party in. We have special presents too. I'm taking decorations. And I'm taking flowers. We're taking banners and balloons. They were all very excited. I'm going to tell him a Man in the Hills story. They are his favourites. Thomas had never heard of the Man in the Hills. He was a very tall man, dressed all in white, and he lived high in the hills. No one has ever found him. An idea flew into Thomas's funnel. Maybe I can find him and bring him to Mr. Percival's party. That would be the most special present of all. I can help you. I know the hills better than anyone. No, thank you. I'm sure I can find him on my own. Thomas was uncoupled from his flatbed. Please don't leave for the party without me. And he chuffed quickly away. Thomas raced through the hills. The man in the hills, the man in the hills. I know that I'll find him. I'm sure that I will. He chuffed to himself. Thomas puffed up to a hillside halt. There was a man dressed all in white. It's the Man in the Hills, he thought excitedly to himself. Please come with me to see Mr. Percival. Yes, Thomas. Right away. So the man climbed on board. Thomas puffed proudly into the wharf. I found the Man in the Hills. The man stepped from the cab. I'm not the Man in the Hills. I'm the dairyman. Thomas was surprised. Fizzling fireboxes. Skarloey and Rheneas giggled. We can help you find the Man in the Hills. No, thank you. And Thomas steamed quickly away. Thomas searched high and low. The Man in the Hills, the Man in the Hills. I know that I'll find him. I'm sure that I will, he huffed to himself. Thomas chuffed towards the mill. A man was waiting nearby. He was white from head to foot. This must be the Man in the Hills, thought Thomas. Please come with me to see Mr. Percival. Right away, Thomas. So the man climbed on board. Thomas puffed into the wharf. I've found a Man in the Hills. The man stepped down. I'm not the Man in the Hills. I'm the miller. Thomas could see the miller was no longer white. All the flour had blown off him. Thomas was upset. The miller was worried. I still have to make the birthday cake for the party. And I have to make the ice cream. The little engines were cross. You said you'd bring the best present of all. Now Mr. Percival doesn't have any presents, and we're all late. Thomas felt terrible. I wanted to find the most special present all on my own, but all I've done is spoil the party for everyone, especially for Mr. Percival. So Thomas asked Skarloey and Rheneas to take the party tent. Please, hurry. The dairyman and the miller boarded Thomas, and Thomas raced quickly away. Thomas was determined to put everything right. Thomas delivered the dairyman to the dairy to make the ice cream. and delivered the miller to the mill. At last the cake was baked, and Thomas chuffed quickly away with it. Thomas met Freddie at a junction. Freddie was on his way to the party. I have to get the birthday cake to the party as quickly as I can. Please, help me find a shortcut. Freddie was happy to help. Come on now, follow me. And together, they puffed quickly away. Thomas and Freddie stopped at the Green Hills Junction. Suddenly, Thomas gasped. Bust my boiler! Look! There, all in white, was a man. He was carved into the hillside. He shone in the moonlight. It's a man in the hills. Thomas, you found him. Suddenly, Thomas had an idea. Freddie, please bring Mr. Percival here with all the engines. And Freddie raced away. Soon all the engines were gathered by the man in the hills. The engines gasped, and everyone was delighted. There, far away and high up in the high hills, Sir Handel was ready to tell his story. And Mr. Percival had the best birthday present ever. From all of the engines. Saved you. Thomas is a really useful tank engine. Whenever anyone is in trouble, Thomas is always there to help. And because Thomas helps, deliveries are made on time without confusion and delay. One day, Thomas was at Maithwaite Station. The Fat Controller arrived on board Percy. Thomas, I need you to collect a very important passenger. He's a fireman and a hero. He rescued Lady Hatt's cat from a tree. A hero? Now we're going to give him a medal. Thomas puffed away to collect the fireman. He was very excited. He was going to meet a real hero. On the way, Thomas saw lots of children at the bus stop. They were excited too. We're going to see the fireman. Bertie the bus is taking us to the medal ceremony. Up ahead, Thomas saw a water tower through the trees. The water tower was starting to wobble. Thomas saw Duck was right next to it. Oh no! The water tower's going to fall on Duck! I must rescue him! Thomas blew his whistle loudly. Quick, Duck! Move now! Duck puffed quickly forward as the water tower crashed to the ground. I rescued you. No, you didn't. Rocky was putting the water tower on my flatbed, and now it's smashed. Thomas hadn't seen Rocky. Rocky had been hidden behind the trees. I'm sorry, but I don't have time to help you. I have to collect the fireman. He's a hero. Later, Thomas saw a tree. It had fallen onto the tracks. That looks dangerous, thought Thomas. I must go and tell the signalman. Thomas backed up to the signal box. There's a tree on the line. The engines must take another track. The signalman changed the points. Just then, Harvey raced towards the junction. He changed tracks and puffed down the other line. Harvey was surprised. Thomas was very pleased with himself. I rescued Harvey, Thomas thought proudly. Now I'm a hero. Thomas chuffed on to collect the fireman. he saw Donald and Douglas stuck behind the fallen tree. I hope Harvey gets here soon. Aye, we can't go anywhere until he moves this tree. Thomas knew he'd made a mistake. Oh no, I made Harvey take the other track. I'm not a hero at all. We need Harvey. I'm sorry, but I don't have time to find Harvey. I have to collect the fireman. He's a hero. Then Thomas saw Toby. Smoke and steam billowed from Toby's axles. Toby's broken down on Gordon's express line. Oh no, here comes Gordon. I have to rescue Toby. So Thomas puffed quickly back to the points. He changed over onto the express line. Thomas buffered up behind Toby and shunted him as fast as he could. Ooh, help! Don't worry, Toby. Thomas shunted Toby off the express line and into a siding. Gordon chuffed past. He didn't see Toby. I rescued you. No, you didn't. Gordon was bringing an engineer to fix me. Thomas knew he'd made another mistake. I haven't rescued anyone. I'm not a hero. And now the fireman won't get to the medal ceremony on time. Thomas felt terrible. Just then, Percy puffed up. Percy, will you go and pick up the fireman for me? Percy was very pleased. You'll have to hurry. The medal ceremony starts soon. So Percy raced away. Thomas knew what he had to do now. Thomas collected the engineer from Gordon and took him to fix Toby. Then Thomas found Harvey. He took Harvey to move the fallen tree. Harvey soon cleared the track. Thomas puffed sadly back to Tidmouth. Then he saw Bertie the bus. The children were standing around him. What's the matter? I'm stuck in the mud. Now I can't take the children to the medal ceremony. Shall I take the children for you? Yes, please. So all the children climbed on board Annie and Clarabelle, and Thomas puffed away. Thomas arrived at the medal ceremony just in time. The Fat Controller and Lady Hatt gave the fireman his medal. The children were very happy. You're a hero. And you're our hero, Thomas. Thomas the hero beamed from buffer to buffer. Excellent Emily. It was autumn on the island of Sodor. There had been a terrible storm. Lots of tracks were blocked, and lots of engines had broken down. But Emily made it to Brendam Docks with her load. Well done. You're the only engine to arrive on time. You are excellent, Emily. That made Emily very proud. Excellent Emily, she thought. I like that. The Fat Controller had a very important job for Emily. Jeremy cannot land at the airport, and my mother is on board. The storm has blown some metal tanks across the runway. You must collect Trevor from Farmer McCall's. Take him to the airport so that he can clear the runway. Then Jeremy can land. Oh, yes, sir. Excellent Emily can do it. Then Murdoch puffed alongside Emily. I'm going to Farmer McCall's too. Lots of lines are flooded. Take the Wellsworth track. I'm not going on that track. It's much quicker to go through the forest. I'm excellent, Emily. I can make it through. So Emily puffed through the forest. But soon she was up to her axles in water. Nothing will stop me. Excellent Emily will find a way through. So she puffed on through the water. It was hard work. At last, Emily chuffed out of the flood. But now she was late. Thomas was waiting at the junction. There's a fallen tree. It's blocking the tracks. Harvey's coming to clear it. I'm excellent, Emily. I don't need Harvey to clear the tracks for me. And she puffed proudly away. Emily chuffed up to the fallen tree. I'll easily push this out of my way, she huffed to herself. Emily pushed as hard as she could. But the tree didn't roll out of the way. It stayed in front of Emily. Now Emily had to push the tree up a hill. It was very hard work, and Emily was getting later and later. At last, Emily came to the top of the hill. The tree rolled away, and Emily raced down the other side. Emily met Duck at a junction. Trevor's waiting for you. Don't worry, I'll be there soon. Some of the tracks ahead are very muddy. If you get stuck in the mud, it's going to take you even longer. I'm excellent, Emily, and I know which tracks to choose. Duck was worried. Emily raced through the villages. She rattled through the valleys. I'm nearly there, Emily thought. Emily steamed round the final bend and straight into a big puddle of mud. I'll puff through this, thought Emily. Then the track started to sink. Emily was stuck. She didn't feel like excellent Emily anymore. Oh no, now I'll never get Trevor to the airport. Further up the track, Emily saw Murdoch. Murdoch's already there, she thought to herself. I should have listened to Murdoch. I should have taken the Wellsworth track. Now she needed Murdoch's help. Emily blew her whistle as loud as she could. Murdoch puffed over. I'm very sorry, Murdoch. You were right. Please, will you pull me out of the mud? Of course, Emily. Soon Murdoch was chained up to Emily. With a huff and a chuff, he pulled her out of the mud. Thank you so much, Murdoch. Emily puffed up to Farmer McCall's. Trevor was waiting. I must take you to the airport right away, Trevor. Emily pumped her pistons. Then she stopped. I know what I have to do, Emily thought. Murdoch, which tracks would you take to the airport? The tracks on Gordon's Hill are still being cleared. You should take the valley route instead. Thank you, Murdoch. And she puffed away. Emily puffed happily along the valley track. Murdoch was right, she thought. Then Emily saw a telegraph pole across the track in front of her. She was going to push it out of the way. Then she remembered what Thomas had said. I'd better wait for Harvey, she huffed to herself. Soon Harvey cleared the track and Emily was on her way again. Emily pulled up at a junction. Ahead, she saw a shortcut to the airport. That track's muddy. Emily remembered what Duck had said about muddy tracks. I don't want to get stuck again, thought Emily. I'll take the longer track. Soon Emily arrived at the airport. Trevor cleared the runway just in time. Jeremy landed smoothly and safely. The Fat Controller was delighted to see his mother. Well done, excellent Emily. You made it in time. That's because everyone helped me, sir. All of your engines are excellent engines. Gordon takes a shortcut. Gordon is a very proud engine. He likes to do important jobs. Gordon thinks he knows the Sodor Railway better than anyone. Gordon was at Knapford Station waiting for Stanley. Stanley was late. Gordon had to take Stanley's passengers on to Brendam Docks. At last, Stanley puffed in. Oh, I'm sorry I'm late. I took a shortcut, but I got lost. I never get lost. I know the railway better than any other engine. Some very important passengers and a group of workmen are waiting at Great Waterton. The first engine to arrive will pick up the very important passengers. The second will collect the workmen. Gordon didn't want to pick up the workmen. He wanted to pick up the very important passengers. I've got to get coal and water. See you at Great Waterton, Gordon. And Stanley chuffed cheerily away. Gordon was determined to arrive at Great Waterton first, so he raced off to Brendam Docks. Gordon delivered Stanley's passengers and puffed away to Great Waterton as quickly as his boiler could bubble. Gordon puffed up to a junction. He could see Stanley ahead. Gordon was worried. Then he had an idea. If I take a shortcut, he huffed to himself, I will arrive at Great Waterton before Stanley, and I won't get lost. So Gordon took the other track. Gordon steamed happily along his shortcut. He stopped at the signal. Duck was having a washdown. Duck was surprised to see Gordon so far from the express track. Are you lost? Would you like some help? No, thank you. I'm not lost. And Gordon chuffed away. Gordon steamed further along his shortcut. I should be at Great Waterton by now, he thought. Gordon puffed around a bend. Ahead, there was a bridge. Hooray! That must be the Great Waterton Bridge. But under the bridge, it wasn't Great Waterton. It was a repair yard. Gordon saw Oliver and Toad. They were having their wheels oiled. They were surprised to see Gordon so far from the express track. Are you lost? Would you like some help? No, thank you, I'm not lost. And Gordon chuffed quickly away. Gordon steamed along. Now he was more worried. His shortcut was taking longer and longer. Then he saw another bridge. Hooray! Here's the Great Waterton Bridge. But under the bridge, it wasn't Great Waterton. It was the shunting yard of a logging station. Gordon had never been here before. Then in the distance, he heard Stanley's whistle from the track below. Stanley is catching up, he huffed to himself. I must race ahead. Gordon pumped his pistons. Then there was trouble. Ben was shunting a flatbed of logs. Gordon biffed straight into them. The logs started to roll down the hill. bust my buffers. Those logs will block the lower track. I must stop Stanley. But Gordon didn't know which track to take. Gordon was lost. What have you done? Gordon knew his shortcut hadn't worked. Now he needed to ask for help. Can you help me, Ben? I have to get to the lower track as fast as possible. Of course. Ben was happy to help. Soon the track was clear, and Gordon steamed away. He had to warn Stanley. Then Gordon arrived at a fork in the track. He didn't know which way to go next. Gordon saw Oliver and Toad puffing toward him. Please, stop! I'm lost. I need to get to the lower track as quickly as possible. Oliver was happy to help. Take the left track. And Gordon raced on. Gordon arrived at another fork in the track. He didn't know which way to go. Then he saw Duck chuffing over a bridge. Please, stop! I'm lost and I'm in a hurry. Duck was happy to help. You must take the track on the right. Thank you. And Gordon steamed off. At last, Gordon puffed on to the lower track. He could see the logs had fallen across Stanley's line. Then he saw Stanley chuffing round the bend. Gordon blew his whistle long and loud. Stop, Stanley! Stop! Stanley applied his brakes and screeched to a halt just in front of the logs. Soon Rocky arrived. He cleared the logs in no time. I'm sorry, Stanley. This was all my fault. I wanted to take a shortcut. I wanted to pick up the very important passengers. But now I want you to collect them. Stanley was delighted. Later, the very important passengers were all on board Stanley's carriages. Stanley felt very proud. Gordon puffed in to collect the workmen. I won't be taking any shortcuts this time. Stanley laughed, and Gordon smiled at his new friend.